Hey there guys, Arlo here, and today I'm reviewing Snake Pass. This is a multi-platform game published by Sumo Digital that has gotten a lot of attention for its unique concept and its Rare-esque vibe, and has been of particular interest to Nintendo fans due to its launching on the Switch at the same time as all other platforms. I myself played the Switch version, so will the game snake its way into my heart? Or will it make me throw a hissy fit? Let's find out. Snake Pass has an extremely novel and even delightful concept at its core. In it, you control a snake named Noodle, utilizing a pretty complex physics engine in what is probably the medium's first realistic snake simulator. Noodle's very long body is comprised of a ton of individually moving segments, which allows you to wrap around poles and slither up onto ledges, using each part of the body as a leverage point, just like a real snake. This system is pretty satisfying in execution and a lot of fun to play around with, though it's held back a bit by its controls. The default scheme has you controlling direction with the left stick and moving forward with ZR, and the scheme labeled Easy has you moving forward automatically when you point in any direction. Neither of these settings fulfilled my needs completely, and I frequently found myself switching between them, which was pretty tiring. The A button is used to lift Noodle's head so as to direct him upward, but there's no subtlety to the action. Hitting the button is all or nothing, up or down. As such, I found myself always jerking Noodle's head around, trying awkwardly to get him to go down one side of a pole and up the other, wishing I could use the second stick or something to guide him more exactly. Holding ZL will make Noodle grip whatever he's wrapped around, which can be used to hold him steady or interact with objects. This core concept might be a little wonky in the controls department, but like I said, it's certainly fun to mess around with. Snaking your way up and around poles has a very interesting tactile feel to it, and anyone who ever watched me play was eager to give it a try. Unfortunately, it's when you take this concept and plug it into the full game that things start to fall apart. Snake Pass places you in a series of levels, each of which is basically a big obstacle course, and you're tasked with grabbing 3 keys in order to open the gate to the next level. Along the way, you'll find glowy orbs to collect, as well as the extra tricky gatekeeper coins. The first big problem with Snake Pass that I'd like to talk about is its checkpoint system. Checkpoints can be found everywhere, and all you have to do is touch one to activate it, but when you die, everything, and I mean everything you did since you last touched a checkpoint is wiped clean. That includes everything you've collected. This means you're either going to be doing stuff over and over, or running all the way back to a checkpoint every time you accomplish anything. The game often requires risky maneuvering over spikes and lava and open sky and all that, so if I wanted to go for something out of the way, I always had to track down a checkpoint first. I never felt able to just move around freely and hunt stuff because I was terrified of losing progress. And even if I ignored the gatekeeper coins and all that, just getting the keys I needed could be brutal. There are all these long sequences where you've got to do so many things in a row, and one tiny slip up means starting all over. This one single section that you're seeing here took me at least 45 minutes, maybe even as long as an hour, because a mistake meant falling all the way back to the ground. And anytime I finally got to the very last obstacle, oh, look at that! Please try the whole thing again! The game had so many sequences like this, where I would get stuck and just get so sick of traversing the same poles and dying in the same spots. And it's these insta-fail sections where the controls started to really wear on me. Like a real snake, Noodle moves very slowly when traveling in a straight line. In order to pick up speed, you've got to slither left and right. This is a cute idea on paper, but it got old fast. I understand that it's all part of making it more realistic and snake-like, but Noodle's slow movement became exhausting, especially when I was continually failing and trying to quickly get back to where I was. Slithering so as to move quickly is something of an exact science, and when climbing, you rely on Noodle to push off of stuff to propel himself forward. So for too much of the game, I was yelling at the screen, wiggling the stick, pushing it as hard as I could, just begging Noodle to go faster, get on the ledge, just go! I don't want to do this again. I've done this 40 times. Can you please just get over there? Then gripping is another problem. There are times when Noodle will hang onto a pole, and there are others when it doesn't matter how many times he's wrapped around it. The weight of his body will just pull him off. I have no doubt that the physics engine is consistent and that every success or failure happens for a reason. The thing is, that engine is complex enough that I couldn't always perceive what that reason was. As such, I could tackle a problem one way on my first try, and then never be able to do it that way again. I could grip one thing perfectly and slip off the next. I could pull one lever perfectly and struggle with the next. I never really learned why some things worked and others didn't, and instead had to throw myself at problems again and again and just hope and pray that I made it, that each attempt would be one of the random times my grip button actually did something. Then don't even get me started on the camera. This is a game that has you twisting all around stuff in every possible direction, but the camera's automatic tracking is not reliable, and it was too often obscured by the scenery. The right stick can be used to move it around, but hey, sorry, all my fingers are kinda occupied at the moment, and I don't have time to baby the camera and inch it into every angle I need. It's a constant nuisance and a very large flaw. In the visual department, Snake Pass is beautifully designed. It's all very colorful and playful, and the animations of both Noodle and his hummingbird friend are very nice. The problem is with performance. It feels like the developers wanted to port over the exact same game as it was on other platforms, so instead of scaling back the graphics, they just lowered the resolution and the frame rate until it ran. The game doesn't even hit 720p HD and loads on all the anti-aliasing it can handle to make up for it. And the result is something of a blurry mess, whether I play it in handheld mode or on the TV. Resolution isn't the most important thing in the world, and anti-aliasing often makes up for low pixel counts, but I just don't feel like it was done well in this case. Everything is all fuzzy, and my eyes have a hard time focusing on anything. It's like looking at a beautiful world through a dirty window, and sometimes it even does this weird ghosting thing that makes it look absolutely ghastly. Combined with a frame rate that often dips below 30 FPS, I just don't feel like the presentation is up to snuff, despite the beautiful design. On a positive note, David Wise composed the music for Snake Pass, which always means you're getting some great tunes. None of the tracks necessarily leaped out at me and had me humming along, but it's all extremely pleasant and creates a nice atmosphere to contrast the angry shouts and curses I spouted at the TV throughout my playthrough. One more very large complaint I have about the game lies in the collectibles. As I played, I kept wondering what they did, and I was probably halfway through when I realized that they did nothing at all. Now, this is probably going to start a big debate, and it's a design thing that comes down to personal tastes, but this was a deal breaker for me. Once I found out that grabbing orbs and coins meant nothing more than a number on the level select screen, I stopped caring about them and just plowed through the rest of the game in a straight line. I know that a lot of goals in games are somewhat arbitrary, and there's satisfaction to be had in accomplishing something simply to do it, to overcome a challenge. But I need my collectibles to do something. I need a reason to grab them. I need them to unlock levels, or grant new abilities, or power-ups, or increase my health, or anything. Even if the Switch had an achievement system, it would have made this a tiny bit better, but there's really nothing here. There have been plenty of times I have gone all completionist on a game just for the heck of it, but I only want to do that when collecting is consistently fun, and this time around the core gameplay was just not doing it for me. Between the checkpoint system and the overall slow and frustrating nature of the gameplay, I just couldn't be bothered to go out of my way for this stuff. There was zero reward. Zero reward, that's hard to say. And really, this game exists almost purely for that type of person who wants to collect just to do it, because when I ignored the collectibles, I blasted through the game in 3 or 4 hours, and that was including probably 2 hours spent on only a handful of particularly tricky obstacles. I'd be alright with the short playtime if there was more variety in the levels, but that's a department Snake Pass is sorely lacking in. The game toys with a couple of mechanics like moving boulders and flipping switches, but never really explores them to a satisfying extent. The whole game I was waiting for something new to happen and for things to change up, but even the fact that each world is based on an element didn't do much to add variety. Nothing interesting ever happens when you're swimming through the water, you're just able to go up and down. Falling into lava is essentially the same thing as falling into spikes or off the world entirely. You die whatever the case. Wind changed things up a little, for the few levels it was featured in. All in all, the gameplay is 95% crawling around poles that sometimes move in different directions, and with so few levels, it all feels like one world in a bigger, more complete game. It never realizes its true potential, and to top it off, it hints at a plot that's much larger than the one it actually delivers. Snake Pass isn't a game that I would say is straight up bad. Lots and lots of people are enjoying it hugely, so I really encourage everyone to try it out. As a concept, I love it, but no matter how much I tried to get into it, I just found myself frustrated by its wonky controls and its unpredictable physics and its time-wasting checkpoint system, and further put off by its frame rate and blurry resolution. It's got a lot of good stuff going for it, but in the end, it turned out it just wasn't for me. It felt like a cool tech demo that should have stayed a tech demo. I give it 3 out of 7. Before I wrap up this review, I want to introduce an experimental segment tentatively titled, How Would I Make It Better? How would I make it better? You get the idea. Instead of just talking about what I didn't like about the game, I want to make it a habit to detail some of the stuff I would change if given the ability. I just didn't know how exactly to fit it into the greater review, so I'm awkwardly sticking it here at the end. In this installment of How Would I Make It Better, I want to focus on one very large issue, the checkpoint system. There are people on both sides of this argument, and they both have good points. Critics of the system, like myself, dislike losing their collection progress whenever they die, as it creates needless backtracking and redoing. However, the opposing argument is also very valid. If you didn't lose your collectibles after dying, you could just leap and fall toward coins and orbs all you wanted without a care in the world, because as long as you nabbed something on your way down, you would spawn with it in your collection, removing the full challenge, which obviously should include making your way back to safety after doing your nabbing. Both systems have pros and cons. One is more frustrating but more fair, the other is more fun but very exploitable. So I propose something of a middle ground. What if there was a second type of checkpoint? Something like an auto checkpoint. After grabbing an orb or a coin or a key, you would be able to save it permanently to your collection by getting back to solid ground. After the game runs a check and notices that Noodle has been on a flat or mostly flat surface without any part of him hanging off the world for maybe 5 seconds or so, some little chime would go off or something and you would get to keep your collectible. This would largely eliminate cheaty collecting and encourage you to take risks without having to run back to a checkpoint every 4 seconds. It still wouldn't get rid of the frustration that comes with dying at the end of a long series of precariously positioned pulls, but it would certainly help the game. That's it for this installment of How Would I Make It Better? Okay, so that's my review of Snake Pass. I was disappointed, but I'd love to hear what you all thought about the game down in the comments. And until next time... 1,000,000 points to anyone who knows this song.